Before you speak, I just wanted to say that Elizabeth has just returned from the annual meeting of the UN Commission on the Status of Women that took place in New York. So she's full of first-hand information, and I think she'd be very well informed on what role international organizations can play. She also ran a fringe meeting there with the title of Helping Women Help the Planet. I'm very honored.
Very much. Should I try this mic? Does this one work? I'll hold it. No, I can hold it. I can hold it. That's better, is it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, we're here to celebrate Iranian women. I should say I have worked for decades, ever since I learned something about the way women are being persecuted in Iran. I have done what I can think of to do to raise awareness in the West and to make sure that our government and other governments know exactly what is going on. So whatever they decide to do, it can't be out of ignorance. I do marvel, I continue to marvel at the courage of these women, and I think the little film we saw and the awful list of restrictions that Roya read out told us about are just a reminder of how people are trying to live and how enormous courage it must take to oppose that kind of situation. The mullahs have not even recognized women's rights in the Iranian constitution. Instead of that, they have continually introduced extra petty and sometimes more than petty restrictions, which they have enforced quite capriciously. So one day you don't know whether it's going to be enforced, and the next day it's enforced with enormous cruelty. I really wonder when I read about it, what on earth the authorities of a mighty country are doing. What on earth is a giant police force doing? Arresting and imprisoning women for wearing scarves that don't cover their heads and necks. Is there nothing else to do? The security force have issued a list of clothing which are deemed to be dangerous to social and moral security. Dangerous clothing. Boots, yes, you must wear boots. Throughout 2007, every month, hundreds of thousands of women were stopped and named by the police for malveiling. Thousands were actually arrested, sent to police headquarters, or imprisoned. The sole purpose of this treatment must be to spread anxiety and intimidation. And people's fears are very well founded, because behind this petty treatment lies some much more terrible treatment. Much more dreadful things are happening. Iran is the only country in the world which hangs women in public. Official sources record 6 women hanged in 2007, and sentences of death passed on 24 women. They're all waiting to be executed, including 18 condemned to death by stoning. On the political side, hundreds of women have been arrested, imprisoned and tortured simply for opposing the regime. Women were arrested for demonstrating on International Women's Day in 2007, for campaigning to collect 1 million signatures, as Roya mentioned, for what is called anti-government propaganda. There were 123 such arrests officially recorded, and they go to prison to Evan. If you've read anything about or know anything about Evan prison, you will know it is a place of horror. People are put into solitary confinement. They are tortured, brutally attacked. The women are often raped. Yet still, in spite of this, these very, very brave women protest. I very much fear that we shall learn of more of these persecutions today, because I am sure there are women protesting in Tehran on International Wedding Day. I think if we care for democracy, for gender equality, for human rights, we must salute such women. We must bear witness wherever we can. I hope David Miliband has a copy of a dreadful book I've got here called The Hell on Earth, which describes what is happening to women now in Iran. I would like him to read it and think about our country's attitude to this regime and how on earth he imagines that appeasement can work. Now, this is International Women's Day, and we are talking about how international bodies can help. I feel that we can learn a great deal from the courage of Iranian women. I am sure that change will eventually come in that marvelous country. And I think we ought to be linking what happens to them to some of the huge campaigns that have to go on in the world today to help women further. And the one that is occupying everyone at the moment, of course, is the campaign, the worldwide campaign to eliminate violence against women. That has been mentioned already. It does affect women worldwide. UNIFEM has described it as pandemic, and 20% of married women in the democracies are said to suffer from domestic violence. On the 25th of February, the day after I arrived in New York, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon launched a worldwide campaign to reduce this violence and to stop what he called the untold cost that violence against women inflicts on all humankind. Violence against women, he said, is never acceptable, never excusable, never tolerable. 89 countries have now passed legislation outlawing domestic violence. 104 recognize marital rape as a criminal offence. The White Ribbon Campaign, which enlists men to oppose violence, now operates in 47 countries. Harriet Harman has made elimination of violence against women one of her 3 priorities. But we have to remember, of course, that there remain countries where domestic violence is tolerated, where it is condoned, and is even encouraged as integral to the misogynistic male culture of that country. In Iran, fathers go unpunished for murdering their daughters, husbands go unpunished for inflicting permanent physical and psychological damage on their wives. An estimated 60,000 girls run away from home each year. The level of suicide for women aged 15 to 24 is the highest in the world, and most of them are married. We must oppose this terrible regime and all such regimes which fail to recognize women's full humanity. We must work for the Millennium Goals, the third of which is the third Millennium Goal is the advancement of women. And Mitty has already mentioned Kofi Annan, and he always said that until that third goal is realized, none of the Millennium Goals can be realized.